Good morning and welcome to this live podcast, Fight CPS with Bob Pace. I want to thank you for finding this show, and I hope that I can help you with getting your children back or hanging on to your children. What I call CPS, it's the agency or the branch of social services. It's a federal entity that was enacted by Congress to protect our children from neglect and abuse, and also help out families in need of food, clothing, shelter, medical, educational, and a job. Also, if they have to break up the family, then they're supposed to do family reunification. So all the agencies are done by counties in every state. I call them all the CPS system, the Child Protection System. Now, the Child Protection System is a system that has gone rogue. What do I mean by that? They're no longer following what they're supposed to do. They're not protecting our children from neglect or abuse. They're attacking parents that have hiccups in their family life due to a loss of job or maybe no income. They lost their house. They may be homeless or whatever. They're in hard times. And it seems the agency has gotten very lax about attacking these individuals because they're easy prey. They can't afford an attorney. They take a court appointed attorney. They do and their children do. And right away, they're going to be able to traffic their child into um, foster care. Now, also, they have learned that the parents don't know about their constitutional or civil rights and allow them, along with the police, to enter the home, to take the children without a warrant, without permission, and they do it almost all the time. The idea behind it is if a child's in danger, domestic violence has taken place, people are fighting each other, it could be a husband, wife, or two guys, or two girls, whatever it is, in front of the children. You don't do that in front of children. What you do is you keep that behavior away from the children. Also, if the children are caught up involved in being strangled or slammed against the wall or be unusually punishment, CPS, the police, will step in, hopefully, and save the children. Lately, they've not been doing it. There's been a lot of children killed needlessly. They've been killed in the social worker hands. One particular state I have is Kentucky, and I have a single lady there who has struggled so hard in her life. When she was a young child, she had to um, be in and out of foster care because of her mom and her mom's drug problem. The problem being is that she was abused in and out of foster care. She was molested, she was raped, she sacrificed herself for the other children to be raped, and then this happened in and out 5 times to the point where they tortured her, making her walk barefooted on sharp rocks and do very unusual punishment. She later in life grew up and had 2 children, but apparently the records that she had, she wasn't fit to be a mother. So they told her that they're going to take one of her 2 children, which is insanely crazy. To sit there and be told you have to pick which child you're going to keep. She had a son that was special needs and a young daughter. She gave up the daughter for adoption, which was sad. That was really sad. So There's lots of these stories that I'm going to tell you about, and I hope that these stories I share with you will help you understand what CPS is about and be prepared to fight them. You have to be prepared to fight them. They're in a money making business. That's all they want to do is make trillions of dollars off your child. The money comes from the federal government and given to the state with no transparency, no accountability. The money is disseminated in large amounts to the counties. And in my case, yes, I too was involved in CPS, unfortunately. My three children that were stolen, trafficking from me, alienated from me, were getting, not them, but the agency in Orange County was getting $20,000 per child per month. That's $60,000. If you had 100 families with three children each, that's 300 children, that'd be $6 million. And right now, there's over 400,000 children being investigated in the United States. Half a million, a half a million are being investigated. And of those, 80% are in custody. 80% are in custody. That's a lot of children. That's a lot of souls. Um, I do want to talk about how to interact with this podcast. This is a live podcast. You found this room by searching me on Facebook, Fighting CPS with Bob Pace. I transmit on YouTube, and I use the StreamYard application. That application is what runs this program. And there's four ways you can interact with this podcast. One is just by being in the room, by just being in the room. And listening and taking notes. You can express emojis like happy faces, thumbs up, hearts, and hopefully things that are being said by me or my guests or other listeners that are shared with you will help you in your case. It's not an easy thing that you're going through. It's not an easy thing you're going through. A second way to interact with this podcast is that if you have a question or a comment, the program allows you to type in the question or comment. It should be about CPS. I put on the screen the following message. It says, when typing in the comments your CPS questions, please show your name. Now, it's very important that you put your first name because a lot of times many of you already have names for your YouTube account or for your Facebook account. And with that being said, it is important that I have a simple name to address you. Jumping cows or psychedelic butterflies over the rainbow is great for what you're trying to maybe fight, but a name like Mary, Sue, Bill, or Tom, or Bob is a lot better. Besides showing your name, make sure you show the city. If you don't want to put the city, at least show the county that you're from. And then make sure you list the state. What I'm doing is that I've already spoken to every state there is in the union. I'm trying to map where pockets of CPS are good or bad. And so far, all I see is badness out there with every state. So put your state. And then I also ask for a city and country. because I have right now 13 countries that have expressed their problems with CPS. So this is open worldwide. Since it's a internet broadcast worldwide, it's open to everybody. And so I ask you not only your first name, but also your city and country. And then you want to be complete with your CPS case when you call in. I mean, when you text in, so that I understand, so we don't have to go back and forth. What I mean by that is that start off by typing in your name and your city and state, or city and country, and then talk about your family. What's your family? Is it a husband, wife, mother, father, partnership, lovers, or whatever it is? And is both parents involved with the children? Are you a single parent? Are the children's are there other parents to the children? Or is there multiple parents? And then what are the ages of the children, the sexes? Are they teenagers? Are they young or old or what? And so, um, furthermore, I'd like to know the incidents. I know it's neglect or abuse, but some details about your incident so that I can help you and other people can hear about your case. Also, how were the children taken? That's important to know because it seems lately CPS gets a complaint, they believe it's true, you're then guilty, and they come out and right away they want to come into your home and take your child. No imminent danger, no warrant, no asking for permission, and they bring along the police, which are, I hate to say it, are just as bad as they are in a lot of the places when they deal with CPS. They're very intimidating. They wear combat boots and fatigues. They look like they're are battle veterans, and they're not very nice. The people skills of the police, the CPS, the majority that I've talked to are bad. But I know there are wonderful policemen out there, and there may be wonderful social workers. I've had 3 social workers on my show at 3 different times. One was a clinical psychiatrist, trained and educated, working for the state of Maryland, and had 6 months of advanced training. The other one was a third party social worker where she was hired out, and she was very cooperative in talking about how she agreed that CPS has been bad lately. Then there was another social worker, which was actually a foster mom, and she said she did not do adoption. She's strictly there to temporarily house the children and support the parents. You have to understand, foster care is not that good. It's also bad. Um, and again, I'm speaking of the people that I've talked to. That's why out of over 500 or more people I've talked to, three people have been positive about CPS and how it works and how it does things. So it's important, you know, to tell how the children were taken and then where you're at in your case. You're halfway through, you're at the beginning, or things like that. Now, the third way of interacting with this podcast is be a guest. Now, to be a guest, you're going to email my show producer. I have it written up on the screen there. And her name is Grace. She works hard behind the scenes and she helps me make this show successful and helps me with technical glitches and handles my guests, gets them onto the show and gets them situated so that they know what they can do and not do on the show. Now, the email her, you would type in grace at vincentwdavis.com. That's her email address. Grace at vincentwdavis.com. Now, I'm on 7 days a week, twice a day, 14 shows a week. I'm on at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour and 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time in the evening for 1 hour. Now, there's exceptions. On Sunday, I come on at 8 o'clock, 2 hours early, because I have church with my family. And so I'm early on Sunday, which is nice for people on the East Coast and maybe other places and so forth. I know that Europe is asleep then, but you know, other places in the world, it is what it is. So to be a guest, all you do is pick one of those show times, and uh, put it in the email, and then she'll help you get on. Now I can take up to 9 people on this podcast, total of 10 windows. So I really love to have you. I had Stephanie from West Virginia two evenings ago, and so I have guests from time to time. I've had as many as 4 people, including myself, on the show. So email Grace at vincentwdavis.com. That is the third way to um, interact with this podcast. The last way is to call in. Now, I know you see 2 numbers there. The number I'm talking about is in blue and white. It's my office phone number. It's 626 698 0990. Yeah, I have a frog in my throat here. Get some water. That means my phone is live. I can talk during the show time, so you can call in during my show hours. If you call in before or after my show hours, leave a message and I'll send you a text message of the hours that I'm available to speak. I cannot talk before my show or after my show, only during my show. Now, when you do call in, make sure you're close enough to the microphone that I can hear you, because I put you on speakerphone and my microphone is in my headset and I have to hold the phone to my headset. Um, Sometimes where I'm podcasting depends on what I do. I use a headset here because I'm outdoors. I'm about a mile up from the beach. I'm in Surf City, USA, with a strong wind blowing across the ocean, which makes it nice, even though we may be 80 or 90 degrees temperature. And I have a headset, and in the evening I'm broadcasting from my home, my studio at my home. But I want you to know this room is very friendly. I want to make sure that you feel comfortable in here. You don't have to say anything. As I told you, being in this room is the first step to interact. Number 2 is texting a message. That's the second way. Third way is to be a guest, and the fourth way is my phone number. Now you may ask, why is there another phone number shown on the screen? That other phone number, 888-888-6582, is the phone number of the law offices of Vincent W. Davis. And he's the one that produces this podcast. So many thanks go out to him. So if you want to contact, he'd love to talk to you. You can talk to Mr. Davis at 888-888-6582. You can talk to him about how to retain him, and he will talk to you about that. And so make sure you tell the office that Bob Pace sent you. And then when you speak to Mr. Davis, tell him that Bob Pace sent you. But that is a direct line to the office. Now, speaking of Mr. Davis, he is a marvelous attorney. I had hired him to help me get my children back. Yes, my children were stolen by CPS very badly. I have a bad case of CPS, so I know where all you're coming from. Well, I have a special deal with Mr. Davis. This is my rule number 1. If you want to talk to Mr. Davis for 30 minutes. He'll talk to you for $60. It's a special deal that I made arrangements with. Now, I have on my screen that you can book a discounted Zoom consultation with attorney Vincent Davis for up to 30 minutes. Care of me, Bob Pace, for $60. You go to this website, https:// Candely, CALENDLY.com /apps, APPTS, VWD /Bob Pace, BOBPACE. And the reason why I think you need to talk to him, or you should talk to him, is because you're dealing with an agency that is very corrupt, not transparent, revengeful, does not like parents or seniors or elderly people. And their whole goal is to kidnap or traffic your child in the foster care system. Also, fighting CPS is like uh, a open heart surgery where a professional doctor will open your chest and work on your heart. You don't use a mechanic or a plumber to do open heart surgery. The same thing goes for the attorney because you're dealing with a very, very bad agency, is from my experiences and the experience of over 500 some people. Now, why am I talking this about number one rule? Because you're going to say, hey, wait a minute. I got a court appointed attorney. Why do I need an attorney? Well, the court appointed attorney that you have been presented, that social services talk you into, by the way, you don't have to get a court appointed attorney. You can do two other ways. You can hire an attorney like Mr. Davis, or you can be a pro se, or you can hire somebody else. But you should really talk to Mr. Davis because he has 35 years of fighting CPS and getting children back. He's been successful. He's the best around. He fights cases in Northern California and all the 50 states. He has a case in Oklahoma right now and a case at Merced in Northern California. He has several cases in the LA area. When you get a court-appointed attorney, they usually have an average of 30 or more clients. So you know they're not going to have time for you. They're also beginning lawyers, and they're not trained in dependency law. Dependency is different. Criminal law is different. Dependency law involves juvenile and family. You have to have juvenile and family dependency law attorney to fight CPS. And if you have a court-appointed attorney, they're not going to do fight for your case. They're going to look at the easiest way out. They're going to make deals with the social workers, attorneys. They'll make deals with the judges. In fact, in my case, in the dependency court in the Orange County, the judge didn't know about unification or families or things. All his background was in damage and auto repairs and claims. Also, in my county, you're not allowed to be in the courtroom. So if you can't hear your court-appointed attorney, you don't know what he's doing. Plus, he will not meet with you outside of court. He'll meet you for maybe 5 minutes in the hallway. Then he goes in and he tries to make deals. He railroads you very, very badly. And I tell you, the social workers are very vindictive. They're with me. Why? Well, for 5 years, they had complaints. A layperson who we did not know at the time was making falsified complaints against my wife and our family. Unfortunately, I had lost a job, and I had lost it through no fault of my own. I was 60 years old, and that's a hard time to lose a job and look for work. because at that age, they think you're a dinosaur. That's right, everybody thinks I'm a dinosaur and cannot work. I'm still physically fit, even though I've been fighting CPS for 15 years. I am older than I was the time I lost my job in 2010. And that's very hard to be dealing with CPS at that time. So I'm telling you, it's virtually important that you get an attorney that can fight for you, that will win your case back. And Mr. Davis is that attorney. So contact him on that website that I have up on the screen. That's https://candly, CLENDLY.com/appts VWD /Bob Pace, BOPPACE. And he will help you navigate. He will tell you for his 30 minutes with you for $60 of how to get your children back. You can't go wrong with him. You can't go wrong with him. And he is a fighter. He's also fought a civil lawsuits against CPS, both in federal and state courts, and won millions of dollars. He is a fighter. He got my children back. Unfortunately, I lost my daughter, and that was because I think I delayed getting that, and also there was a grudge by a social worker explaining to what she could do at the age of 12. And in California, a 12-year-old can be emancipated from their parents with special direction from the Child Protection Agency, which I feel is very corrupt. I feel is very, 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 very corrupt. So that number in blue with the white lettering is to call me live on my office phone. The lettering in orange and white is to call the office. But the ticket that runs on the bottom of the screen is to contact Mr. Davis for your Zoom consultation. So that was my rule number one. And I have several ways I could go with my podcast. One way is to talk about stories of CPS. Another way is to um, relate my case to you guys and tell you what I did wrong and what you could do better. Another way is to talk about more of my rules. I have 4 more rules I can talk about. Also, I have people that join me, and right now I don't understand what's happened because uh, they're not in the room. I know that there was a big debate last night. A lot of people were disappointed or angered, whatever the case may be. Now, I have this girl, Faye, who's usually on my show, and I'm asking her where she's at. I also have another girl from West Hollywood, Natalie, who lost 2 of her children. And she has been very, very helpful. So, right now, I don't see any requests or comments about which direction to go. So, I'll continue with my rules because they're important rules to go by. They will help your case. And if you want to call in, please do so. I'll leave my phone number off. Don't forget to contact that website to talk to Mr. Davis. Now, I just talked to you about rule number one, about the importance of having an attorney. Because when you deal with CPS, you're like Alice in Wonderland. You've fallen in a rabbit hole in the garden, and you met the Chester cat that directs you to different rooms that make no sense. That's what CPS is. You're an Alice in Wonderland. It's an awful experience because we're not prepared to deal with CPS, and they know that. Their whole purpose is to make money. In order to make money, they have to take kids. When they take kids, they get the money. And they know that most parents that are struggling, like in my case, I had lost my job through no fault of my own. So I was struggling. I had to cut corners. I couldn't afford an attorney. I eventually got one because I sold my home. And my home was a beautiful home. It was really a beautiful home. In my case, the only thing I did wrong was have a charge of neglect that was later disproven, and I was able to get my kids back. You see, there's two types of people that call in to make complaints. There are your professional people, which are people that work with children. They're required by law to report any suspects of negligence or abuse to the Child Protection Agency. There are policemen, firemen, there are nurses and doctors, they are daycare workers, there are school teachers and principals. And so if they see bruises or any kind of physical abuse, or the child comes to class with very little clothes on, or torn or tattered clothes, or looks starved or emancipated, they're going to ask the child. They're going to try to talk to the child and find out what they think is wrong. And when they determine uh, that maybe it was a sporting incident, they're playing uh, football or soccer, and they were injured doing so, but they'll call in. The problem with there's no regulation about writing a complaint, and this is true about lay people. Lay people, somebody walking by, let's say somebody hears a child in an apartment screaming for 2 days in a row. Well, that is a warning sign. They shouldn't wait 2 days. And I'm talking about a mother that had surgery done on her child, brought her home, and the child was brought home too soon. The insurance made her leave because insurance companies were trying to cut costs. And so she had a child that cried and cried and cried. She should have taken the child back the next day to the doctors. The layperson's right about calling. They want to do a welfare check and so forth. Well, what happened was they came to her door. She let them in, and they didn't believe her about the doctor thing. It started becoming a mess because, again, the Child Protection Agency wants that child. So, rule number three deals with entering your home, your residence, and also deals with turning over your child and medical transfer, medical trafficking, I'm sorry, medical trafficking. So, rule number three is there's only three ways that social workers are police. And the reason why social workers take police because it's the intimidation factor. So, what happens with this layperson? In my case, it was my in laws, my wife's mother, father, sister, three sisters, and a brother were making up fabricated stories because why? They wanted to adopt our three children. And they've never been supportive of this. I've been married for 31 years, and I am a family man, and I take care of my family of six. It was my three younger children that CPS attacked and my in laws attacked with false allegations. I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known that. And it really, um, it really is, it really is sad that lay people use it for alternative motives. Let's say a neighbor has a yard overgrowing their yard. They're going to call in and say the child is left alone outside. Well, when the CPS investigates, they find that the neighbor doesn't have any children. So they make up stories all the time. And because there's no written allegation turned in and signed by their perpetrator, they think it's the truth. Now, they should not think it's always the truth. They should investigate. But that rule number three is you don't let them in your home, number one. Well, actually, number one is you do not answer the door. And why do I say you don't answer the door? Lately, there's been three people that have been murdered, point blank, shot in the chest or the face. It's not safe to open your door. And I'm talking about Roger, a black airman from Gainesville, Florida, that was shot 5 times in the chest by the Gainesville Sheriff Department. He's been fired and he is being sued. And I think criminally charged. There was a black lady that was at the sink washing dishes when this officer and the deputy were in her home and fired her 5 times in the face. He was immediately charged with first-degree murder and fired. The deputy now is being charged because the deputy did nothing to stop it. And it was wrong. It's wrong. The third person was an Asian lady, Korean, that had mental issues. And they came and shot her to death. Shot her too quick. See, the police don't think. The first case, Roger, was domestic violence. They had a wrong house. And how many wrong houses I've heard innocent people being killed? The woman that was shot in the face was just argumentative. The police should know how to diffuse things. I don't understand the policemen or how these cases are handled. If there really is abuse or neglect going on, they only send out one policeman. But if they send it out, they'll send out a whole horde of people. So the rule is don't answer your door. Go to another part of the house, be quiet. They're going to bang hard. They're going to try to enter it. The only way they can enter your home is if there's domestic violence going on. Domestic violence going on. What that means, two people are fighting or arguing. You do not argue in front of children. That is wrong. Also, children are caught up with that are being harmed, maybe being strangled or punished excessively. No more punished with belts or spoons or branches or those kinds of things. Timeout is the method preferred. Timeout is the method preferred. Um, so, with this rule number three, they can come in if there's domestic violence going on. Or if you give them permission or some of your house does, they can come in. That's the second way. The only other way is if they have a court order, a warrant. It's a special formal document that is gotten in court before a judge, and the judge signs the court order at the bottom. And then his signature is embossed by a stamp so that it's legitimate. It has to be a wet signature. Furthermore, it's got to say who it's made out to, the parties they want to talk to and search and take their children if necessary. They've got to have the names of the children, the allegations, the address, the location where this is taking place, and then the date and time they can come and investigate and what they can do. They can search the home, they can talk to the people, or they can take the child. So that's a warrant. If you don't answer the door, you don't see the warrant, they can come back later or leave a card. What you need to do is contact an attorney, like in rule number 1, right away. And you want to get back to them to leave a message. There's a phone and email that can contact you. There's no need for them to take your child if there's no imminent danger. Now, if you're outside, an easy way to avoid them is say that you need your attorney present and that you um, need to contact your attorney and have them there for the go any further. You just say a timeout. If you're with your children, you have your children behind you, they have to produce a warrant. They have to produce a warrant. They cannot take your children. If they arrest you, they can take your children, but they have to arrest you. So an easy way out is to say, I need to talk to my attorney before we go any further. You have the right, you get their names and their phone numbers and how to contact them, and you say that you and your attorney will get back to them. Make sure you follow up on that. That's really important. You have to be professional. It's yes, no answers. Do not say too much because everything you say will be used against you. It will be used against you. Remember, this is a criminal proceeding. You have your civil rights and you have your constitutional rights that protect you. You need to know them. You need to know them. Now, another part of this rule number 3 is called medical trafficking. Now, what that means is that you take your children into urgent care or emergency room because your child has a high fever that's sick. Be careful because hospitals now are employing social workers that work for the CPS, and they will try to take your children, especially if you say something dumb. So tell them, unless they have a warrant, they can't take your child. They can't, and don't talk to them. No need to talk to them. Get their name and number and tell them your attorney will talk to them. Tell them your attorney will talk to them. Also, if you're pregnant and going in to have your baby, be careful because they'll come in and try to take your child because maybe you tested positive for drugs or something or medication. Again, unless they have a warrant, they can't take you. They can have a policeman with, but you have to say, do you have a warrant? You ask them to please leave. This is my birthing room. I'm having a baby. And then you go home with your child and contact an attorney because they'll be back. Always get their name and phone number and verify their name. Look at their badge number on the policeman. Look at the ID on the social worker. Make sure it matches because they will use falsified names. They are not too scared of the lie. If Faye was on right now, she'd tell you how corrupt Kentucky is. It's the worst of all the states with child protection services. The police are really bad in Kentucky. And that's sad to say. I mean, it's so bad that right now in Richmond, Kentucky, they are investigating where $1 million was spent by the CPS. They have no record where it was spent. They have $1 million unaccounted for. There's also a person who's been indicted for embezzling funds. There are policemen sitting in jail that are so corrupt. So, with that being said, be very careful. Be very careful with medical trafficking and entering your home and surrendering your children. You don't want that to happen. My rule number 1 and rule number 3 are the most important rules. Now, rule number 2 is to organize your paperwork. And this is something I was bad about. I wrote my notes on envelopes, on post-it notes, on scraps of paper, on my phone. my computer and stuff, but it wasn't well organized, meaning that the best way to keep it organized is a notebook, a three-ring notebook. And what you do there is you get the biggest one you can, about, I think the biggest ones are 4 inches thick, but you get the thickest one, 8.5 by 11. And you want to make sure it's sturdy. And then you want to get subject dividers, like get a pack of 20 subject dividers. And you want to organize all the different kinds of subjects you're going to have, and you want to stuff it full of college rule notebook paper so you can write. Writing on the phone, on your tasks, or writing on the computer is hard to do. The fonts are small, and it's so much easier to use a pen and paper and to write legibly your regular work there. So one of the most important subject areas in the notebook you can organize is called incidents. And that could be incidents with your children, with the police, with the social worker, with your neighbor, anybody related to CPS. You put on the first line, you get a sheet of paper and you put the first line, the date, the time, the location, the people involved. Then the second line, you describe what the incident was. And then the third line, you put down the outcome. And if you don't know the outcome, leave it blank and you can come back to later. Then skip a couple lines and put the next incident. And you do this for everyone. Soon you have 50, 60, 100, 500 incidents. You won't remember the details, and that's so helpful if you do have the information. Because it'll help your lawyer, it'll help you, and you can bring things up the judge may have overlooked or something. It's a written timeline of things that are happening in your case. It's very important to have that timeline because you won't remember everything a year from later. So, rule number 2 is organize a notebook, use a highlighter. Other subjects areas could be an info page where you have all the websites and phone numbers and agencies to contact and things like that. You can also have uh, your medical records in there, like if you have gone to a psychiatrist or you have issues about your children and so forth. You put that there. You can put your court papers and organize your court papers, hole punch them, maybe make a 1-page index in that section so they can find things readily available. You want to put your parenting classes certificates, put a legend there in front of all the classes you take. Same thing with your programs, your anger management program, your drug program, and all those there. So those are some of the things you can put in a notebook you can organize. You can think of other things, make a tab for it. But that way you carry it with you. If it ends up being too full, you can start a second notebook. But you'll find out that that'll be a most valuable part. I wish I had done it. I wish I had done it. It's too hard to remember on the top of your head. Now, I've talked about rule number 1, hire an attorney. I've talked about 2, about organizing a notebook, and 3, about letting them in your home and talking to them and letting go of your children. Now, 4 is a real simple one. You need to spend at least 40 to 60 hours of research in the internet. That's how I'm able to have. I have over 50 topics that are open right now that can talk about the ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978. Or I could talk the ICPC, which is an organization that transports kids from state to state, or a JV 160 hearing, or a 388 motion. Um, Again, I have a lot of information. What you do is you research engine by the city and the state. Now, if that city is not a major city, like for instance, if you're in Athens, Georgia, you may want to put Atlanta and Athens, Georgia. Then you put the word CPS, and then you describe what in CPS you want to find out, the court systems in CPS, or how to get an attorney, a CPS attorney, things like that nature. It's so valuable. You spend at least a week's worth of research about your case, take notes, and write all that down. It'll really pay off and very valuable to you. very valuable to you. So that is my rule number 4. Now, my rule number 5 is one that Faye helped me come up with, and that is an envelope that has all your important documents, your medical records of your children, your birth certificates of your children, your social security cards. If you've had medical reports done of your children or yourself, or that you've taken all those, that should all be in that folder. You can have copies of marriage certificates because you have to prove that you're married. You have to prove. Also, you have copies of your Indian native blood. If you're American Native Indian, you can be registered or are registered in one of the 548 native federal recognized tribes. You get special benefits if you're Indian. No more better than others. The only thing is CPS no longer processes the child the Indian tribe does on the reservation. They put them with Indian families. Problem is, some Indian agencies are corrupt, like the one in Oklahoma with the Cherokee. It's been very corrupt. Other agencies are very poor, like the Pine Ridge or the Rosebud Reservation of the Lakota Sioux. They're right next to each other. They're very, very poor. And there's a lot of problems. Alcoholic has been one of the major problems of the Native American Indian. Alcohol and Native American Indians don't get along very well. And the way that we treated them, they've been so abused for so many years. But that's a whole different story. I'm here to talk about my rules. So have that envelope handy with you, because what happens if you had a birth of your child, make sure you get your birth certificate and social security before you leave the room. If not, social services will give a birth certificate and a social security number for the foster parents to adopt. You got to be careful. They're very, very tricky. They're very, 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 very tricky. So I'm sorry for the background noise. Someone likes to sport his car, I guess, making sounds. Anyway, those are my 5 rules. I've talked about getting an attorney. I've talked about organizing your notes, your notebook. I've talked about how not to give up your children and how to say no and how to stay away from the social workers. I've talked about medical trafficking. And I've talked about the research on the CPS. And lastly, about how to keep track of important records and whatnot. So those are my 5 rules. Now I have remaining time. Again, my phone number has been available this whole time. 626-698-0990. I do thank you all for your emojis and listening. And just today, some days there's nobody in the room, and some days people are doing other things. Again, I'm open to suggestions of how to make this podcast suit your needs and how to be a better podcast. I'm really a loving father who really wants to help you all out there. I care about you. I do this twice a day. It's a lot of work, 14 times. I don't know of anybody else that does that many podcasts. But I've been doing this a long time. And I do want to help you. I want to share my stories. I want to thank all the people that have come back and said nice things and things that do help. I'm going to finish with my case because maybe you're interested, maybe you're not. My case, after 5 years of invalidated accusations by my in-laws, finally in the 2015, the CPS got frustrated and had the police help follow me home one day after I picked up my child. And they had me go to my house. I did not know about not allowing. I should never have gone. I should have said either arrest me, give me a ticket, or let me go. Because what I did is I listened to a policeman. And you think believing in policemen, social workers, or government agencies that know what they're doing. But in my case, it wasn't. I didn't have to go to my home or open it up. They didn't have a warrant. They wanted to find something wrong with me. They couldn't find anything from looking outside of my home. So they brought 5 firemen, 2 code enforcement officers, 3 uniformed policemen, and 2 uniformed policemen, 3 social workers, and the detective. Now these people all were standing in my home, and so I did not know about not letting them into my home because that's what they're looking for. They've been in my home, by the way, several times. What had happened or what changed was my mom and dad were passed away, and I had their belongings of 55 years of marriage. 55 years of marriage, and all their belongings were at my house because I didn't have money for storage, and I wanted to sort it. They asked me, son, could you sort our things and give them to families and friends? And I did. That's what I was doing. But because I had all these boxes and furniture, and they're in one room of my house, I have a huge house. They were in the living room. The children's bedroom were free of any kind of obstructions or anything that could hurt them. The rooms were clean and organized. They each had their own bathroom, and the master bedroom was empty of anything. The kitchen was fine. You could prepare food. The refrigerators were stocked. The cupboards were full of food. There was an eating table in the kitchen they could eat at. There was a family room off to the side that they could play in and enjoy. They also had a swimming pool outside that they could enjoy and beautiful yards they could play in. There also was a dining room, a formal dining room that was clear too. And then there was a bathroom downstairs and another study area where you do their homework and stuff. Those were uninstructed. I have a call here. Um, Good evening, Faye. I mean, good morning, Faye.
Oh, hi, Bob.
I know that you're calling towards the tail end of my show, and I appreciate you did call in. Anything new?
Uh, well, not really.
Are
I've
you
just been working
okay?
on trying to get this stuff over to the reporter in my county.
Yeah, you may want to hear this, all my listeners in here. This room is jam packed. I got over 1 million people in this room. I wish that was true. There are listeners, I just don't see them. But Faye has been working on a report. She is trying single handedly to fight her state. Her state is corrupt. So she's put together an important paper about what's happened to her and other people in the state of Kentucky. And she sent it off to different people. What are the people you sent it off to, Faye?
Well, I've sent it off to just about everybody. I've sent it off to all the news stations, all the reporters. I've sent it off to senators, representatives, legislators, all the local government officials. We sent it off to Health and Human Services, Department of Justice, the Office of OCVR, I think, or something like that. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
um, I sent it off to the all the local government officials, like the Office of Inspector General, the Attorney General, the Ombudsman's office, the auditor's office here in Kentucky. Um, yeah, so just about everybody.
Right, right. Well, I think that is really a marvel hard work. Today, I just pretty much talked about my rules. I was finishing up what happened to me and my family, um, and how bad that CPS was in my case. And so I gotta finish up because time is up. It's 1 minute before the show must end, and my show producer has left. And So I want to thank to all our listeners and thank you, Faye, for calling in. And if you stand by, we can talk further. To all the people in the show, please come back and keep fighting for your kids. God bless you all. And I'll see you tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. God bless you all.